Oh look, it's a Sequential Pro 3, and that's a Eurorack modular synthesizer. And today we're going to explore how to bring them together. This has been a much requested video, people wanting to see how I use the Pro 3 with my Eurorack system, and the funny thing is, I really don't. I've done a couple videos on the Moog Matriarch, and I talk about how I love using it with my Eurorack, because it's so visual, so immediate with all the patch points. But it is well worth pointing out, you are absolutely right, that the Pro 3 can do a lot of those things as well, even though it's a little bit more hidden within the menu, because we do have to go into the mod matrix to set everything up. What we give up in immediacy with the Matriarch, we gain in some more flexibility, in that we can assign each of these CV outs, there are 4 of them, and CV ins, there are 4 of them as well, to whatever we want within the mod matrix. Now, this is not really how I use my Pro 3. I like the Pro 3 because it is, in my opinion, a self-contained modular environment. And I love just sitting down with the Pro 3 and a couple of effects and patching within the Pro 3 because the mod matrix is so incredibly flexible on its own. And I think what makes the Pro 3 so intriguing to use with the Eurorack system is that very powerful sequencer, which is one of the strong points of this synth. Now, unfortunately, I have run into a couple frustrations when trying to use this sequencer to sequence external modules here in my Eurorack system, specifically pitched modules that I want to be able to control at a volt per octave in a quantized pitch manner. So I may have some questions for you in this, if some of these things that I would like to be able to do are possible, because I just can't seem to find a way to do some of the things that I want. By the way, I have a free 20-minute course that will take you through the basics of subtractive synthesis, if that's something that you want to brush up on or learn a little bit more about, so that you know some of these terms that we're talking about in these videos. That's going to be the first link in the description. And again, that is absolutely free down below. So you might be thinking, well, what does the default sequence sound like? Well, it slaps. Just for the sake of today, let's say I wanted to do something not like that at all. If you notice right now, we are just listening to the Pro 3. A little bit about the setup here. I am using a board-brain exchanger, which is a great way to get signals to and from line level in and out of your Eurorack system. I have a whole video about using these particular board-brain utility modules. They're really, really useful for things like this. So essentially, the outputs of my Pro 3 are going into the exchanger, which is bringing it to Eurorack level, which is then sending it to my output module here. And then when I get done with this patch, I'm going to bring everything back into the Pro 3's input through the exchanger as well. So right now I am only listening to oscillator 1 of the Pro 3. Close my filter a little bit so that it's a little bit less obnoxious. So that's cool, but we have done nothing special yet because we are just sequencing oscillator 1. But let's try to set some things up. I want to control the trident with this sequencer. Now, if you'll notice, if I go to track select, lanes 13, 14, 15, and 16 are automatically set up to output to CV1 out, CV2 out, CV3 out, CV4 out. There's just one problem with this. These are not quantized pitch values. So these are great for either triggers. We can set each of them to, let's go over here. I can assign it to a CV trig, and then I could trigger drum modules or rhythmic gates to happen within the Eurorack system. But if I am just in CV out, as far as I can tell, there's no way to get quantized pitch values out of this, right? I can set the CV value, the CV amount per track. I could record in a CV sequence using this value knob in live record mode, but then it's going to be random unquantized values. So that has been the hang up for me. It seems to be really great, these CV outs, for sequencing modulation parameters within the Eurorack environment, or triggering drum modules or gates within your Eurorack environment. Not so good for pitch, because if we want to sequence using the pitch information, the quantized pitch note information, I have to go source. Hopefully you can see this with my wide angle lens. I can go note number, and I'm going to send that destination to be CV out 1. And then if you set that amount to 127, I'm going to have to actually run a cable here to the trident. CV out 1, go into volt per octave of the trident. I'm going to give the trident its own envelope, which is going to be the quadrax. So therefore I'm going to grab a cable. This is a messy video today. CV out 2 is going to be my gate. I'm going to assign that to a trig, and I'm going to have that control the quadrax. Shorter cable. That output is going to control the VCA that is going to open and close for the trident. And then we're going to take that out. I don't need a filter because I'm going back into the Pro3. So I'm actually going to go straight into, let's go into Data Bender, one of my absolute favorite modules that I need to do a video about still. I'm going to keep everything mono because it's a mono in to the Pro3, so there's no point in having a stereo signal here. Go into magneto, left out of magneto into the exchanger, which is going to send it back into my Pro3. Now, I'm not going to hear anything yet because I'm going to have to go to the external input level in your mixer and increase that to 127. You're going to want to turn the gain down and adjust that as needed. I don't know why it's default to max there, but it is. And we do have an envelope follower that will follow the incoming signal, and that's a pretty cool thing to have because we can use that as a source in the modulation matrix as well. So I have no idea what this is going to sound like because the trident is not tuned to the Pro3 yet, but let's hit play on our sequencer. Remember that sequence that we just played in? Let me turn down the external and listen to that sequence again with oscillator 1. Cool. Okay, let's try that with the trident, and it should work if I've done everything correctly. Fingers crossed. And immediate failure. And I'm realizing now I forgot to set up our gate, so I'm going to make lane 13, which is currently set to CV1 out, and we don't want that because that's going to be our note number information that we've set up in the mod matrix. I'm going to change that destination to CV2 trig because CV2 is going to be triggering my quadrax. So if I turn that down, I should see when I play here that those gates are happening. So let me change that to, let's get some random stuff in here. Now you can see that being reflected in the quadrax there and in my quad VCA, what is happening on the sequencer lane here. So that is working. Now if I turn up my external audio, we should hear the gates, the quadrax being opened and closed by this lane, and we should be getting this pitch information from lane 1, which is the note number set up here. So let's turn up the external audio. And that is the trident that we are listening to. Now what's great about that is that we now have the trident coursing through all of the effects, the VCA, and the filter of the Pro3. We also have our own effects path coming in to the external audio. So if I play that again, I'm going to turn my BPMs down just a little bit to something less obnoxious. So you can hear that the pitch and the gate are on two different lanes. And now that I've increased the fall time of my envelope that is controlling the trident, I can hear that. If I bring oscillator 1 back in, they are remarkably somehow basically in tune with each other. I have no idea how that happened. That is total dumb luck and would never happen again in a million times trying to shoot this video. So let's take a moment and reflect on that. Now that's cool, but I know what you may be thinking. What if I wanted to control the pitch information of the oscillator here in the Pro3 separate from this oscillator with different note information, and therein seems to lie the flaw of controlling a Eurorack module with this sequencer. Let's try paraphonic mode, because I did this earlier just to see, and we could kind of get there because it seems to take the note number from whatever is the last oscillator. So if you're not familiar, if we go to paraphonic sequence and turn that on, now lane 1 is the sequencer for pitch information for oscillator 1. This is oscillator 2's pitch information, and lane 3 is set up for oscillator 3. If I turn the release down on my VCA, you might notice that's going to control everything going through the Pro3. So I have to open that. I have to open that if I want to hear sort of different envelopes, whether I'm using the auxiliary envelopes or the filter envelope. They all cascade down and they all ultimately go through this VCA envelope. So your amp envelope is the master. If you want to hear individual like layers of things, like if I want to assign the oscillator 1 level to an auxiliary envelope 1 and maybe the oscillator 2 level to envelope 2 and have those two things sound different, I'm going to have to give myself enough release time that we can hear those differences. But once again, let's get back to programming our paraphonic patch. So I'm going to go to lane 2, and that's going to be oscillator 2. So I don't remember what I recorded, but I'm just going to record something in. And I'm going to change the length of lane 2 to 15 steps by holding 15, reset. Now it's going to be constantly evolving because we have 16 against 15. So you may be noticing something mysteriously. Now our note number set up to control our CV1 out to the trident is being controlled by what we just programmed, which is track 2 of the sequencer. No longer is it controlled by track 1 of the sequencer. If I were to record another sequence into lane 3, it would be controlled by lane 3. It seems to always be the last thing that you programmed in. It would be really cool if you could go into another lane and set a note number to control, say, sequencer lane 5, but you can't select a sequencer lane as a destination. It's only available as a source. So that is a bit of a problem because that gives us only 3 lanes max, each of which is going to be shared by one of the built-in oscillators of the Pro3. So as far as I can tell, there's no way to have a 4th lane sequencing quantized pitch information independent of what's going on with the oscillators here and these first 3 lanes. I can't find it. If you can find it, please leave a comment below and I will amend this video accordingly. And I will apologize to the Sequential team, who I love very much. They are great people. So as I mentioned, the sequencer is incredible for sequencing external gates and external modulation. So that is what I want to focus on today. I don't want to make this any more complicated within the signal path of the Eurorack itself. And you may only have a handful of modules, and that's why you want to use the Pro3. So I'm not going to be using my external sequencers or any of that stuff in my Eurorack, just focused on a synth voice going through a couple of effects, and then back into the Pro3. If you watched my video on the Rossum Trident, you know that I absolutely love this complex oscillator, and I often use it not as a pitched oscillator, but as a source of kind of pitched percussion, because there are so many ways to do a zing mod, it's really ring mod, and modulate all of these things. We have the ability to sync these oscillators and create interesting timbres. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do it using the Pro3 sequencer to send out multiple gates to this module. So I'm going back to an initialized patch here because I don't want to even worry about controlling the volt per octave of the Trident. I'm just going to tune it to something that works with the sequence I'm going to program, the note sequence I'm going to program in the Pro3. First of all, I'm just going to set up my sequence in the Pro3. Okay, so now I want to go to track 13, which is CV1 out. I'm going to actually make CV1 out my gate. CV2 out. I'm going to send to the exponential frequency of oscillator 2 and turn up the zing modulation, which is going to allow this frequency to control oscillator 1. So it's essentially FM and ring mod, this oscillator controlling this one. I need to turn up my external audio. In fact, I'm going to turn everything else down just a bit. So I'm going to have this lane of the sequencer 14, which I'm going to make longer. In fact, I'm going to take it all the way out to, let's say, 12. And then I'm going to record in, while the sequence is playing, I'm going to control the value, and that's going to live record this modulation in. Gotta hold it down. Now, with all of this information coming into the mixer, it has headroom, just like the matriarch does. So it's going to start to distort and overdrive, and that can be nice, but right now it's coming in just a little too hot. I'm going to take it to a 2-pole OTA so more of the highs come through. Data bender. Little spring reverb and delay. I can open this on up, and let's say that I want to have a little bit more control over the independent oscillators within the Pro3. Well, I could assign, let's turn oscillator 1 level down, and actually I'm going to do it for oscillator 2 because I find that to be a little obnoxious. I kind of hate the sequence that I programmed. So I'm going to have, just for the sake of keeping 2 with 2, I'm going to have auxiliary envelope 2, the destination be oscillator 2 level. And so this is what's going to control. If I give that a mount, let's see if I can demonstrate that. I'm going to turn everything down except. If I give that some positive amount, we'll hear this envelope is now controlling this level. Let's say I want to control this decay amount with one of the sequencer lanes. I can do it. Let's go lane 5. Hold record. One thing to note here, for whatever reason, if you'll notice, the negative values open the decay in a positive way. I don't know why it's inverted when you're modulating things with the sequencer for the decay, sustain, release, and attack times. I don't know why that's the case. If someone knows, you can explain it to me because it seems a bit bizarre and it took me a long time to figure out what was going on. But yes, positive values on the sequencer, if I just go into each step and give them positive values, you hear that they're closing the decay time or decreasing the decay time instead of increasing it. Let's hear that. So these 3 steps are where it's set. Now if I record in some negative, it's a little bizarre to me, but that's how it works. So just so you know. Okay, let's go back to the 4-pole filter. This filter has a little more headroom than the ladder filter does, so that's why I'm using it. Still clipping a little bit. Bring in the external. So let's say that I want to use one of the LFOs in the Pro3, which we have not touched, to modulate a parameter on the trident. Well, I can do that as well. Also, you can notice that we have not used any of the CVNs yet. You know what, let's go exponential frequency again, actually. And I'll give that a little bit of zing mod amount. And let's just see what happens. This oscillator is synced, so it should be a little bit more pleasing. Let me turn everything else down. This is oscillator 2's level, remember. And then let me assign LFO 1. Give it some amount and assign that to CV. CV3 out. Make it sample and hold. cutoff into a sequence. Make this lane the distortion. We've just done quite a lot. We have not controlled any parameter of the Pro3 with an external signal. And I think that is one other thing I would like to do. I'm going to use my pico_rand, which is just a random source, to control something within the Pro3 itself. So I'm going to take the sample and hold from the rand and send that into CVN1 if I can get my hand in there. And then I can go into my mod matrix and say my source is going to be CVN1. And let's say I want my destination to be, you know what, let me use my instant happy accident trick, which I also made a video about, where I give it some amount and then just scroll through some destinations. There we go. So now, the pico random is controlling, in a sample and hold, the shape mod, or the pulse width, of oscillator 2, which is a pulse wave. If we listen to just that, nice. hope that I explained it well enough that you can start to use the Pro 3 to control your Eurorack, or vice versa, use Eurorack modules to give you additional modulators for the stuff within the Pro 3. There's obviously so much more you can do with this. If anybody knows how to add an additional lane of pitch information in addition to the 3 that we have set up here with the note number source, let me know, because I would really love to figure that out if it is possible. It doesn't seem to be, at least not that my feeble brain can manage. So yeah, this has been kind of a fun experiment for me. Again, I don't use the Pro 3 this way typically, but you can really do some interesting things with it. And with all the modulators we have in the Pro 3 and things that can be modulated from external sources, it really opens things up and will give you lots of fun for hours. If you want to see a video about how I typically use the Pro 3, which is by itself using all of the mod options that we have within the mod matrix, you can click this video right here, and that'll walk you through some generative patches that I made on the Pro 3. If you like the video, and if you'd like to see more videos, subscribe to the channel, because that would really help me out tremendously, and I thank you for hanging out with me today. See ya.